Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem, amma ba'd, fa'auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri, wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. My topic for today is veiled threats to Haya. And for that, what we need to understand is the basic concepts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in Quran. And the most important being that we need to work on lowering our gaze. And this commandment has been given to the men as well as women. In fact, it has been started from men. And I fail to understand all the movements where when the women are told to do a certain thing, they immediately start focusing their guns towards men. Acha, mardon ko bhi kahin na? Wo kare na hijab. Dirty, sick-minded people. The point is, if something is being told to you, then that's where you need to take your own initiative. And yes, there are people around who are explaining the same concepts to the men. By large, we are focusing on the topic of Haya. And whenever we talk about Haya, modesty, chastity, and these terms we are trying to explain to people around us, or even we are trying to internalize the same concepts, what I've seen is the image that immediately pops up in our head is a girl who cannot speak, who cannot take a stand for herself, who doesn't know how to bring forth her ideology, practice her ideology. So that becomes a big challenge for us. But we see that the word Haya comes from Hayat, life, a dynamic person. And that's what we have found out from our previous talk. Why? Because you know where to say yes and no. You know your own home grounding. You have clarity in your head. You can take a stand for yourself. You can raise your voice in a nice, decent manner for the right thing. Because someone who has Haya, who has modesty, has clarity in thought process, clarity in practices, and clarity in also conveying those concepts to people around. For us, the biggest challenge right now is the youth in our times. Because when you are young, you have a lot of identity crisis. And when you live with this identity crisis, you know what happens? Your ideas get mixed up. And this is where Shaitan and the people who are coming from different ideologies are attacking us. Because we are already confused. We are looking for my own identity. Where do I stand? And then you're bombarded with these messages, what to do, what not to do. And that's when you are messed up. Remember whatever we have been talking about in modesty, in Surah Al-An'am, verse number 151, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us these are major sins. Gunahi kabira. And we have been told we should not even go near immodesty. وَلَا تَقْرَبُ الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ. Do not even go near any kind of fawahish, whether they are open or they are hidden. And at the very same time, we have been given a preemptive approach. What is a preemptive approach? It's not like you have fallen into a pit and then you talk to yourself, then you're living with regrets and telling yourself, I wish I hadn't done it. You don't do that. The preemptive approach is you understand the danger that's ahead of you. You take measures in right appropriate time. And that's where we are lacking. We go by what our desires tell us, jo dil chahta hai karo, have fun, live in the moment. And when we land in those troubled areas, that's where we don't know what to do. In Bani Israel, verse number 32, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Don't even go near zina. Many times when we look at religious people or we listen to certain sermons, even if you listen to this talk ahead of me on Haya and chastity, and there was a big list of do's and don'ts. very severe warnings in some areas. Some of you might have thought, it's too hard for me. How am I going to practice it? It's very difficult. It's next to impossible. That's where you need to understand a basic concept. That's where you need to understand a very basic concept. You need to have clarity on what is modesty. You need to have clarity on what are the things around me which are affecting me. And then make a checklist for yourself. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةٌ وَسَاءَ السَّبِيلَ, that it is an evil and very open road. You are going to be in a bigger mess. You have also gone through all these verses which are on Haya. The goodness that we get out of Haya and modesty, it's a path to paradise. It beautifies your deeds. One important thing that we need to learn over here is that if I am trying to practice Haya, chastity, modesty, I need to be very confident about myself. If I live with ifs and buts, if I am shaky in my concept and my practices, that's when everyone is going to take advantage of me. If you have Haya, you have modesty, and you are practicing it with full confidence, then inshallah you will see yourself as a remarkable person. So why did I call it veil? Veil threats to Haya. If you look at the words with the similar meanings, the veil is to cover or disguise. It's a screen, it's a canopy, it's a mask, it's a covering, it's something which hides, it's something which is implicit, underlying, it is undetectable, it is indirect. Why we call it veil threats? Because they are evident, but they are not taken seriously. When we say, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا, don't even go near zina, you don't even identify it with zina. You're like, मैं तो कुछ भी नहीं कर रही. I'm just putting an innocent remark over there. Hoy, ये तो uncle है. It's just like my brother. अपने भाई की तो उंगली बर्दाश्त नहीं होती. You know, your brother is sitting next to you and you are like, why are you even sitting there? Why are you even looking at me? How dare you touch my phone or laptop or even my bed? But someone whom you say is like my brother is authorized to everything that you have. Feel the difference. Feel the difference. These are evident, but they are not taken seriously. And we regard these things as safe. They come like a hijab. They're so covered, we don't see them as a threat. We go in that path, we take that path, thinking, I am a strong person, I have clarity in my ideology, and I will cope with it. And that's where we land in trouble. So let's look at some of these veiled threats. The first threat. We have cyber Romeos. If you look at a profile of a cyber Romeo, he is not vulgar. He seems to apparently have either a decent get-up or a sunnah get-up. He likes to be personal with sisters. He'll send you messages. I like the post that you share. I saw your work and I really appreciate it. Like in the whole world, they cannot see the talks and the work which is done by dynamic men. But he immediately identifies something which is done by a girl. And then they pursue you Islamically. When I see you, when I meet you, when I work with you, you're reminded me of my sister. You actually need to meet his sister to find out what kind of relationship he has with her. Do they even talk to each other? Has he made a similar remark to her? So this is a profile that we see of a decent person on net. You know why it is dangerous if you look at it? First of all, it will only give you more broken heart. Because you keep talking to them, you keep interacting with them, they are not your mahram, you start developing those feelings towards those people. Because you are entering into that domain without any defenses. मैं कौन सा affair चला रही हूँ? Astaghfirullah. We're working on a project, we're just discussing ideas. So you are entering with all your guards lowered down. Okay? You don't have any defense system activated at that moment. And suddenly one day you realize you are in love with him. You started missing him. And suddenly you realize he is throwing remarks with a double meaning. Now that's where you're getting confused. That's where you're trying to understand what he's saying, why he's saying. And then your love needs come out. You realize he's the only one who appreciates my work. Nobody loves me in this life. I miss him. I think about him. I want to work with him. You are suppressing your feeling. And your focus is out of that domain now. You're constantly now building relationship with him. And many a times I have seen actually people land in a lot of trouble. Sometimes they are even married men. Sometimes they are double your age. But many a times, in fact, these cyber Romeos are playing around with you. They're not serious. Even someone is serious, you actually get to know that person. He wants to marry you. You find out there is a huge difference between either your ideology and his ideology, or your parents or your family and his family. And for many reasonable, logical reasons, your wali would not be ready to give you in the marriage for this person. So what's the solution? We need to constantly be working on our company. Because the moment we are glued to, or we're sticking to those people who tell us how to be very, very vigilant on social media, on different platforms, as Sister Aisha rightly pointed out, that when you're working with all these people, or when you're working on social media, then you need to have a mahram there. You need to have proper custom setting. You need to have a very clear criterion for yourself that you are not going to be, even if you're feeling low that day and you're sitting on your laptop, you were working on something and a chat, something pops, a request pops up. And since you were hating your life at that time, or you're feeling very lonely, you say, what the heck, let me just talk to him today. Doesn't make any difference. Just this once. Because I'm feeling so bored and I'm feeling so lonely. And these are the kind of stories we hear from people. You know, I'm not this kind of a person. I never thought I will get involved with anyone. But I was feeling so miserable and so lonely, and I was working on my project, and this guy came up, and since I was so alone, I just talked to him. And now I'm in a mess. What do I do? So the right company will always keep bringing you back. And as it has been rightly mentioned by Sister Aisha, that what you need to do is help each other. If you have modesty and haya, you need to keep guiding your friends. Like on Instagram, a lot of institutions these days, they have the institution forums, class forums, they have memes, they have confessions. And in those confessions, the girls and the guys, they are boldly talking about their involvement with a guy or a girl. The girls are boldly saying, he's my man, or I have a crush on this and this person. And they're spreading rumors about one person or the other that they hate. And those people are landing into severe depression. So we need to safeguard ourselves. We need the protection of a mahram, as it has been said. In all such dealings, keep your mahrams in place. You need to connect very strongly to Quran and Hadith. Your chastity needs to be polished all the time. Like we clean up all the mess, all the clutter, everywhere. On our laptops, phones, even in home, closets, physically, or through an app. That's what you need to do for your spiritual system as well. When you are connected to Quran, your emotional clutter is washed off. And that's what you need to work on. And you need to avoid those romantic novels and plays. Because if you have just watched a movie, or just read a novel with a hot scene, with a romantic scene, which has all your emotions hyped up, what are you going to do? You will not only be like in the trap of those cyber Romeos, you yourself will become cyber Juliet. So please safeguard yourself. Let's look at the veil thread number 2. That's the corporate world. Many of you would be going there for internships, ultimately working, being professional. One way or the other, you are interacting with them, you are getting to know them. We need to understand this corporate world psyche. It's a male-oriented setup. Even when the women, they take pride in being equal partners in many professions, being CEOs of many organizations, having their startups, having their businesses, running a lot of huge platforms, heading departments, being the best person in the organization they have joined. But we still need to understand it's a male-oriented setup. Men are over there, and many men, when they see these women in those areas, they see them as easy praise. It's a psyche, it's a men's psyche. And it's not a men's psyche in Pakistan, it's a men's psyche everywhere. It's a men's psyche the way they have been created. I mean, you can see in offices, do the men treat women the same way as they treat the male colleagues? No, never. They have a different style of handling or talking to each other. I remember as a doctor when I was doing my internship, even the females who would be sitting over there with me, the female nurses, the colleagues, if I request a female colleague to help me in some area, she will be a total procrastinator at that time. In a lazy style, she would tell me, "Acha, Dr. Sahiba, uthti hu, abhi karti hu." And suddenly a male doctor would walk in and say, "Staff, zara us bachche ko canula laga de." "Haan ji, doctor sahab, baithe na, pehle chai to piye, aap to thake hue lag rahe hain." And I would get that kind of a protocol if there is a male whom I would ask for help. So that psyche you have to understand. That's the psyche we live in. It's a reality. No matter how much placards you hold in different marches and places and slogans you raise by saying, "Aise kyun hai, aise kyun, aise hai." We have been struggling with it for ages. Now we need to define our domain. They will always have soft corner for the opposite gender. And age doesn't matter. As I said earlier, you might be looking at a man thinking, he is like my dad. He is like my older brother. Ye to the cute se uncle hai. He just cracks jokes. No, he is not cute. He is vulgar. He is seeing you as an easy prey. He is flirting with you. He is an opportunist. I have actually seen HODs and senior people in education departments flirting with their students. And the students, what they see it as, a friend would come in, you are sitting upset, this HOD called me in his office, and the kind of double remarks he was giving me, and he was asking me for my number, or he sent me a text, and I'm so upset and I don't know how to deal with it. And one of your friend would say, "What difference does it make? He will give you all the marks. You wouldn't even have to study. You will get a good GPA. Go ahead." You don't have to actually go and meet him. Just, have fun with him on WhatsApp. Just talk to him. Just enjoy your life. Nobody would know. He wouldn't even say anything to anyone. But who knows? Allah knows. So they display a lot of apparent respect. And the dangers that you land in, affairs, flirting, and immorality at peak. Immorality at peak. This is such a big fitna. Many a times when I see a young girl sitting at the reception area, or I go to a mall and I see a girl who walks in hijab, goes to the changing room for her duty, comes out in a short shirt and tight pants with full makeup now, because she has to be in her duty in a store, in a mall, where people are walking in and she has to show them around the stuff. I feel so bad. And when I discuss it with one of my colleagues, and I would say, I feel bad for those girls. Why do they have to do that? And I would hear bitter remarks from people. Dr. Kanwal, Allah has blessed you. You have everything in place for yourself. You don't understand the needs of these women. Bichariyan. आपकी जिंदगी में सब खुशी है, that's why you cannot understand the miseries they go through. I am taken back in time when I was young, and even in these days, I know so many women who go through difficult times. They have to come out of their homes to earn, but they don't come out physically. What do? They used to cook at home, give that product to some place for selling. They run online businesses like that. They take tuitions, stay at home. Every other person in the community is looking for a good teacher for their kids. They opt for offices which are like all-female offices, all-female jobs. They do something at home. They stitch clothes. They become designers. They open parlors for females. All female related tasks they adopt. But they don't compromise on their chastity, on their haya. Because the moment you expose yourself to that corporate culture, everyone takes you for granted. So you need to safeguard yourself from all such fitna, because you're not actually earning so much as the danger you're putting yourself in. So the solution for this thing, I would say, is the right career choice. And also having clarity on your hijab limitations. Wherever you're working, you don't compromise on your hijab, on your haya. Tell yourself first, and then the people in front of you, these are my limitations. Wherever you're sitting, wherever you're talking, because sometimes you will have to work with men. But working doesn't mean that you expose yourself in a manner in which you go more towards zina. And I also always tell people, even myself, let's say I'm desperate to do work on a project and I'm rejected because of my chastity, my haya, my hijab, my niqab. And somebody comes up and tells me, you can keep wearing your abaya, just remove your niqab. That's it, that's all that you have to do. And scholars do give this relaxation. So why don't you take that relaxation? And I would say, no, I don't want to take that relaxation. I don't want to expose myself in those places. If people see me talented, they would take me up. And if people are rejecting me because of my chastity standard, that means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is protecting me from something. I'm not going to make that compromise. And trust me, with all these years that I have struggled in different places with my hijab, at the end of the day I realized that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has definitely saved me from many places. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken me to the peak of all those places where appropriate for me, despite the fact that I was wearing hijab and niqab. I came on media, on many TV channels, after wearing my hijab and niqab. So clarity in your head is very important, where you set your own hijab limitation, and if you're not taken up for a job, you tell yourself it's okay.